Professor Sean Davison.
Good morning, a pleasure to be here.
Well, Sean's here to share his personal story about helping his mother to die. Would you tell us about that?
Sure. My mother was a medical doctor, and like anybody, she developed cancer, initially primary cancer. She had that operated on, but sadly it developed into secondary cancer. As a medical doctor, she knew the terrible death awaiting her from cancer, and she chose to have control of her death by going on a hunger strike. And she wrote a living will to that effect, saying, "Please don't force me to eat, please don't take me to hospital." And her children and myself respected her request.
So you actually went to New Zealand to be with your mother?
Yes, yes. I have lived in South Africa for the last nearly 20 years, and my mother was living in New Zealand where I was born. So I went back to be with her at the end of her life, which was a time to celebrate her life. Even though she was dying, she'd lived a wonderful, colourful life, and I was going back to celebrate her life in her death.
But you actually incurred a charge for doing this to me.
I did. The hunger strike went terribly wrong. She was drinking a glass of water a day, only a glass of water a day, for 5 weeks. After 5 weeks, her body refused to die. She couldn't move her arms or her legs. She was basically decomposing in her bed to keep her vital organs alive. If I touched her, her skin was bruising and breaking. And she knew this was a ghastly death that she went on a hunger strike to avoid, and that it could keep on going for many, many more days or weeks like this. And she begged me to help her to die. And out of love and compassion, I gave her an overdose of morphine to end her life, at her request.
Now, there's a similar case to yours in New Zealand. Would you tell us about that and how yours ended up being differently?
Sure. There was a similar case in New Zealand. A woman was charged with the assisted death of her mother, assisted suicide. The woman was a nurse, and she was found guilty of assisted suicide and went to jail for 2 years.
Well, how long did you serve? Because you were convicted.
Yes, I went to court in New Zealand. It was a bit of a shock because I live in South Africa, but I was arrested in New Zealand, and fortunately Archbishop Desmond Tutu wrote to the court requesting I be released from the country on bail to be with my family until the trial.
How did Desmond Tutu know you?
Desmond Tutu was the Chancellor of the university where I work, University of the Western Cape. He didn't really know me. I was just one of the many professors. He knew I was the head of the DNA forensic laboratory and had worked on anti-apartheid cases. So he knew me in that context. But after my conviction, he did know me by then and kindly wrote to the judge requesting leniency in my sentencing. And I don't think any court in the world would have sent me to jail after receiving a letter from Archbishop Desmond Tutu.
So after you served your sentence, Sean, you came back to South Africa.
Back to my home, yes.
Your home in South Africa. And you started an organization called Dignity SA. Would you tell us more about that organization and what its goals are?
Sure. So it was 4 years ago I founded the organisation Dignity SA. It has one goal, very simple, to seek a law change in Parliament to allow for assisted dying for people near the end suffering unbearably.
Has it accomplished that purpose?
We think we're almost there, possibly there. We had a court case recently where the High Court ruled that a terminally ill man could have an assisted death by a doctor, by lethal injection. Now, when you're seeking a law change, you have to be prepared for the long haul. We feel this court case has shortened our journey considerably. In fact, the law should change within a year. Our Parliament has to be guided by the court. When the court is ruling that a person can have an assisted death, Parliament has to agree and say the same thing. And they have to speak with the same voice, basically.
Well, now you've written a book that actually talks about your personal story, your experience. Would you tell us about your book and what you hope it will accomplish around the world?
I wrote the book. It's called The Last Waltz, Love, Death and Betrayal. It's a story that covers the time I spent with my mother, 3 months in New Zealand, and then culminates in my terrible High Court trial in New Zealand. It sounds a very gloomy book, but in fact it's quite cheerful and humorous in places. But the most important thing is it stimulates debate and discussion around a very difficult issue, death and dying.
But one that we all share around the whole world.
Absolutely, and our Western society doesn't want to talk about it. We have come to grips with abortion and homosexuality and drug abuse, also very difficult issues in the past, but now we talk about them around the dinner table and in the classrooms. And so it should be with death and dying. We need this discussion. And the publisher is Blue Danube Publishing in America. They published this book and another book, To Gently Leave This Life, by Elaine Foyer. These two books, there should be many more. This type of book is going to stimulate discussion on the issue, telling personal stories. And shortly I will be going to America, and I'm hoping to be involved in the Right to Die campaigns in the different states. I would like to see all the states in America allow for assisted dying for terminally ill people at their choice.
Well, thank you so much, Sean, for sharing your story with us and also what it's actually accomplished in South Africa.
Pleasure to talk to you. We have to keep in mind there are hundreds of people dying right now in every country, terrible deaths. These people should have the option, only an option, of an assisted death if they want it.
It's really urgent.
It is.